Hi, guys, welcome to a new episode of the Brown Bread. This is a platform that I'm trying to create for anyone and everyone who wants to learn things from the best of the best from different industries. And today, we literally have a legendary artist with us, Sir Kenzo Minami. Yes, that's right. In case you are a creative person, you want to learn about art, you want to learn about creative processes, you want to learn about product design, this is the perfect place for you. So I'm going to shut my mouth right now because I'm already in awe. And let's just get going with this. Welcome to the Brown Bread. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for that. Good.
So, of course, as I said, like anyone and everyone who wants to be a part of the world of art and design probably knows you. But for maybe that one person who maybe do not, if in case like if you can just comfortably introduce yourself in a few words.
Yes. My name is Kenzo Minami. I do graphic art, but I think we get into this eventually.
Yeah.
I feel like progressively I it's becoming kind of undefinable or like I don't know. Or like, the graphic
Yeah.
design, graphic art in a looser term, which I think is the beauty of graphic art or graphic design, which kind of can encompass everything, which is I'm kind of heavily sort of leading into the fact that it's sort of definitions can be fuzzy, sort of.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I do like like I mean, I started with like I'm sure like you want that would be like something you get into, but like
Yeah.
you know I do graphic now, but I used to do music video and all the stuff, and then yeah,
Okay, so let's actually just get into it because
yeah.
the entire conversation will be about your journey only and for people to learn from this dialogue. So, first of all, to learn more about your entire journey, I would actually like to go back to the like real starting days, of
Hmm.
yours from your childhood. So, I would love to know like how was it when you were growing up back in Japan, and were you always interested in art, or there were some other things also that you loved doing and somehow influenced what you are today?
Right. I think, I actually think that my first love was movies for,
Okay.
I think for a lot of people, but I think it kind of stayed, I mean, where it was, where it started, but like, I mean, that's where, yeah, I'm pretty sure that my first love was movie, but then, um, like generally I grew up in Japan and I lived there until 18, but then when I was a kid, I kind of grew up in a very sort of like dual like my parents or my dad essentially I come from like a very industrial family, everybody's factory workers,
Okay.
and now they retired. My dad retired recently, but like um it's like he was working in the die-cast metal factory, and then like so we lived in the city, but then we would move go to his factory from Friday night to Sunday night.
Sure.
So we were, I was basically half grew up in at the factory, like, melting metals and stuff and crashing metals and stuff.
Sure.
So that's, and then of course, that comes, that's where, of course, escapism comes in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something prettier or something nicer. So yeah, that, and then design and stuff. And then reading. I mean, I was really into, I love books. So that's, yeah.
So what did you actually study like once you actually have to pick up your your career and everything? You, of course, you go for some formal education. So what was your like that first step that you studied
You mean like the in college, like what I
in
majored
college?
or
Yeah.
like before?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in Japan, like I got into like a really sort of pretty good school. I would say prestigious school from high school. So it was
Sure.
really difficult to get in because it's like, so like before that, in my junior high years, I signed up for this cram school, like which is school outside of school. So, like
Okay.
I go to junior high. And then I go to school to study hard, you know, like extra to get into this high school,
Sure.
which involving they can't do that anymore in Japan, but like I had to sign this contract saying like that I'm not gonna sue them if they physically hurt me, you know?
Oh,
So I mean, you know, like I mean, this is like back in the days, you know what I mean? Like they
yeah.
cane you and shit. You know what I mean? That was kind of crazy. So I got into that. So like I got into high school to this part of the high school was attached to this university in Japan, which where I studied basically like literature and the Western philosophy
Sure.
and aesthetic basically. Like it's kind of major. Like there's only few university in Japan has this particular type of major, but it's kind of like cross between like aesthetics and art and the Western philosophy kind of.
Sure.
And I was there for not even a year because I was planning to go for a year, 2 semester, and then I was going to move to US because I always meant to come to US. But
Okay.
I got into this university because just to prove that I can in Japan, essentially, you know, like
Okay.
just to tell, I mean, to myself essentially, but like to like you know, like the parents, but not really. Just you know, like this is like when Japan was really rich, you know, like
Yeah.
they're doing well. So like there was a lot of money in Japan. So a lot of kids in high school who couldn't really, and also Japan was a very high pressured, um, you know, like the country, especially for young kids to do well, you know, get
Yeah.
into good school, get a good job.
Yeah.
So people who couldn't deal with the Japanese society, they would just go to high school in US or something. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Just because they can afford to.
Sure.
And a lot of people kind of like did that as, and I kind of didn't like that idea. I felt like I was running away from it.
Yeah.
So I told everyone that I just picked this hard university to get into. And I told them I'm going to get in here and I'm going to quit and go to US. So just to prove it, really. You know what I mean? Oh,
Sure.
just, you know, it's a good thing to prove yourself when you're young. So
Yeah.
you know you can do it
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you put your mind to it, you know?
Yeah.
So I moved to New York, and then I studied industrial product design at Parsons, essentially.
Sure. So, like, in case you guys don't know about it, which I'm pretty sure that for the people who want to get into the world of art and design, Parsons is like the Mecca university if you want to learn design. It's literally the Mecca. So, yeah, like anything that you want to add up to that.
The Parsons is kind of interesting school, at least for me back then. Like you know, like in retrospect, I was sometimes like, oh, I wish I went to school at College Town. I don't know, you know, like in US, you know, there's like a
Yeah.
place like Pittsburgh or something.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like whole town is. I have all my business partner all went to that like RISD and the Pittsburgh, and then like a lot of my friends, a lot of people in creatives went to like RISD and or like go to school in College Town and move to New York as they graduate, right? But like, so sometimes I wish, like, oh, I wish I experienced this college town life. You know, the
Yeah.
whole city is almost revolved around the
Yeah.
college, you
Yeah.
know? So like bars everybody goes to and stuff. But like New York, like the fact that the Parsons was in the middle of New York City, it's there's a pros and cons. I mean, it's great because it's almost like a training
Yeah.
ground. It's like it's not even I think they kind of stress this when we get in. It's like we're not. They're more like we're gonna train you to be professional as opposed to
Yeah.
this is like academia. It's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Which I love the world of academia and I kind of miss that. But also because we were art student in 90s in New York, it's like there's nothing better than that. I mean, it
Yeah.
was amazingly exciting
Yeah.
time. You know, you go to school. I mean, and you're really busy with work, but also, you know, I mean, it's like a whole East Village basically
Yeah.
was my campus. So
Okay, so post Parsons, what did you like? How did you? What is it that you opted for? And how did you get into those, uh, into the industry?
the what do you mean like about why
Like as a professional, like post Parsons, what is it that you did?
like after the persons, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Okay, how you sort of like when I graduated and how we
And
kind of transition.
graduated, and then how you
Right.
transitioned into becoming a professional.
Right. So this is actually like I think it relate to what I was just saying about New York City being
Yeah.
Parsons being the New York City. So like you almost kind of start your hustling to get a job when you're a student. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like because you're like so by the time that's how it happened to me. It was like by the time I graduated, I actually became a partner of the company to
Okay.
with bunch of same bunch of other kids. They were like a year older than me, so they're like already out of school, but I was already still in school. And then what happened was um because I studied product design, I was basically like I wanted to learn how to use like the build how to build. And then I was doing a bunch of 3D stuff, but also like like the school's gonna tell you to make like something like I don't know as an exercise shampoo bottle or something. And I mean
Yeah.
it's like because it's like a particular carb, it's hard to mold it. So like it's a good exercise, but then it's when you're a teenager that's boring. So you start building like a robots and things.
Yeah.
And then that led me to and then at the same time I had this lifestyle actually around the time that I go to school and then come home around like 6 or something and then go to sleep and then wake up at midnight and then I go down to uh Parsons Dome because I was living in apartment in Chelsea
Okay.
and I had a bunch of friends in like East Village, like a Parsons Dome. So I would go and then they had a studio, so I would start doing homework like at night.
Sure.
And around 4 a.m., we all go to these cafes, like in East Village called like Yafa Cafe at the time. Like it was 24 hours. You can smoke inside. And then you always, when you go, you always there are always all these writers and all the creatives just hanging out like late night. So we all go down there. And then what happened was I started meeting a bunch of people, but then like, they start asking me questions. So I was show them my sketches or something.
Yeah.
So my first job I got was like this guy Voltaire, who is this kind of goth filmmaker. He did like a lot of stop motion animation for a sci-fi channel on MTV at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
He he hired me to do a set for his short film. So that was my first actual paid gig. And I was still like second year maybe in school.
Sure.
And then funny enough, I was actually at the B&H, which is the store you in New York City, like all the photographer goes to for like cameras and equipment for the shoot. I actually ran into him yesterday. And
That's
then yeah, and then he was talking to the store guy, the clerk and helping him out. And then I was start talking to him, and then like the store guy, clerk was like, oh, you kind of like, oh, you guys know each other. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, he's the first guy who gave me a job.
yeah.
So yeah,
That's so
it's
interesting,
nice.
man.
He's there.
Like it's like a full circle.
Yeah. So it makes sense to do this now. Maybe also this is since it's in New York, this is September 11, 9/11
Yeah.
today, which
Yeah.
also still kind of resonates for us.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
know, it
Yeah.
feels kind of like, yeah,
That was a sad space, but yeah, let's not go over there. It's going to like divert our conversation.
yeah.
But yeah, moving forward. So I'm assuming
Actually,
that's
sorry.
how.
So actually that part didn't end actually when I think about it,
Yeah.
because as you were saying, that was a one case, but when I was graduating,
Yeah.
so I became a part, so I started doing like visuals and stuff.
Sure.
And I end up doing, like TV commercials around that time. And then I met my future business partner who was doing club visuals and then like visual for like fashion shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they're already out of school. And then I had a skill to do a particular thing that they didn't. So we start doing
Which was
collaborating. They were doing more like a club visuals and random visuals, but like I was actually doing ID spots and spots for TV,
sure.
which eventually our company is going into. But like at the time, they weren't doing TV broadcasts. They're more like a visual guys.
Yeah. Sure.
But they had but they're already like out there, and then they're like and also club visuals back then was like um I mean, I was already out, I was partying, and it was fun to, fun to be part of it. But also,
Yeah.
they were kind of like, there was this, when I joined or about to be joining, we were kind of like a loosely part of this sort of scene called Sound Lab in New York City, which was kind of like audio visual experimental sort of events and sort of group kind of thing.
Okay.
So we start doing the visual for that. So we basically start working together, and then I mean, even before I graduate, like in December, I think before the next spring I was gonna be graduating, they were like, "You want to join us?" So I joined. So like when I graduated, I was already sort of seamlessly went into that life of being a partner of the production company.
Sure.
So that's how it
So
kind
that's
of
basically how you
started.
got yourself into TV broadcasting.
Yes, yes.
Sure. Sure. Interesting. Then how did this whole change came in your life? This entire pivot came in your life when you moved on from TV broadcasting and towards this whole world of design. So if you can talk a little bit about that journey as well.
Yeah, that part is um so it's like I was doing this TV broadcast for like 7 years.
Okay.
I end up doing that for 7 years, and I was basically part of the company for 7 years. But at the same time, it's like I think American broadcast is it's kind of like the unique beast, at least for me as a Japanese. Like Japanese TV commercial is, let's say, Japan is culturally very um small
Yeah.
or more like a focused, because it's like Japan is generally like a monoracial culture. Everybody,
Yeah.
mainly the Japanese people, and then fairly non-religious country. Like they're religion, but like
Yeah.
that's not really heavily um and if anything, everybody's in a Shintoism, like, and some Buddhist, but some like Christianity, but it's like not, mainly just, and then everybody kind of have like come from the same place.
Yeah.
So let's say if you're making TV commercial, everybody basically is aware of what's happening culturally. Even like, like
Yeah.
people who's not into art, they kind of know what's happening really, because it's
Yeah.
very, small, culturally small place,
Yeah.
and then less diversity, I guess. So if you want to make something random, like some sort of like something heavily relying on the sort of nuance
Yeah.
of the fact that we're all same people, I guess that's a weird
Yeah.
term. And then you can kind of, like you make some surreal stuff and then put like a logo at the end, and people like, okay, that was Coca-Cola or that
Yeah.
was Nike, you know what I mean? But when I was doing TV commercial in US, because the US is such a diverse,
Yeah.
you know, basically social experiment, everybody's have a different background, everybody have a different religious belief,
Yeah.
and then, racially it's like diverse, and it's massive, physically massive
Yes.
country, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, west and east, it's different culture, and then like
Yeah.
Idaho, it's like, I don't even know what's happening. I mean, my ex was from there, but I still don't know what the hell is happening there. So
Okay.
it's like, so when you're making TV commercial for like, I was working on like a Coca-Cola, we did like a Sprite and Coca-Cola for a bunch of seasons, campaigns. But
Sure.
like, you start with like a cool, because everybody wants to make cool stuff.
Yeah.
Creative agency and creative directors and even company, they want to do something cool. But then like after like you started with all this cool idea, but after like 4 months of working on it with like market researching and stuff, it's like it's so diverse that if what everybody will get will become very primal, like, hot, good looking people having good time and
Yeah.
logo. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
every time. And then
Yeah.
it's like, sometimes I remember like once we had this idea for Coca-Cola that like there's like a CCTV and then all this like, like hidden cameras and all these different angles. And it's like, we were really excited about it, but then I was like, okay, conceptually, it's just too, I wouldn't say high concept. It just, you know,
Yeah. No, so basically, their agendas were like to appeal to every single person, to appeal to the masses. whereas of course you can't do that if you actually have that nuanced sort of script or nuanced sort of concept. You obviously you can't appeal to all of those people, and
Yeah, on
in such
TV
a
realm. Yeah.
in such a diverse country. So I get
Yeah.
that. I get
Yeah.
that. So
That's why I kind of start doing my, basically my answer to the question, your question
yeah,
goes to this is like, so that's why like basically to lose my sanity, after everybody went home,
yeah,
I stayed, I was like, I had to give myself like a half an hour, at least a
sure,
day, just to make something for myself. So like, so I can, I would keep creatively, I would keep
yeah,
my sanity because I 1 year, like years of doing this, I realized I look back for on year and a half of what I worked on a lot of stuff. I wasn't happy with any of them.
sure,
And I wasn't proud of any of them. And it kind of scared me. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna stay after everybody go home. I'm gonna stay for extra 30 minutes to give myself just do anything,
sure,
just purely just for myself.
yeah,
So I start doing that. And that accumulate into my own stuff basically. And sometimes some client or people I know or friend would see it and it was like, what is this? I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm just doing stuff, for myself. And I was like, you should do something with this. And I was like, eh. And then no offense to anybody involved in this process, but like, like eventually I was like, I will start pitching these ideas, which is kind of like well, essentially what came out as my solo stuff later.
yeah,
So back then, reaction definitely from creative director is like, it's too crazy for TV, or it's too weird for TV, or
yeah,
we don't get it. And also back then, no offense, but like my partners didn't get it either. They're like, we don't really understand it, or I always heard so many different terms of like, it's too something,
yeah,
it's too punk, too crazy, too fashion, too whatever, right? So it was kind of like I just was keeping it sort of privately. And then um so eventually my partner back then was like, why don't you just do it yourself? Kind of. So I start doing that, like, we don't get it. So, you should, it's basically like just do it your own on this one because we don't really understand
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So I start doing that. And then essentially like, this also goes back to later, I think, to whatever, like we might be talking about, but it's like, first actual tangible thing was like start making little things, right? And then I made one sticker. I still have the sticker. Like I made the sticker as a test because I had a printer near me that I wanted to test it. And then I had this sticker and gave out to my friend or something. And then I had a roommate at the time. She was in this pop band. And then she was gonna go on tour. And then she took my sticker and she went to Portland and gave it to this guy, Mark Clark,
okay,
who now works for Ace Hotel. But he was also back then working with a partner, Alex Calderwood, who eventually eventually was going to open up Ace Hotel, but they were also a partner of the company called Never Stop, which did all the Nike
yeah,
um, project. They're not in-house, but they took care of a lot of Nike stuff.
sure,
So they're like, who made the sticker? Who is this guy? And we are opening this art gallery in Nolita, Soho area in New York City.
yeah,
And he paint the mural for us. And that's kind of like a lot of stuff started happening, but that was one major shift.
sure. So that first big thing was that mural that you got.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the break. So again,
Right.
so now we realize that okay, this is how you got yourself into this whole world of design. And the first project was this amazing mural that you eventually made for that museum. But now I want to know about that first big project that you got, which was successful from say monetary angles as well, because of course like
Right.
when you were doing all the TV broadcasting and everything, I'm pretty sure after 7 years you would probably have been making some decent amount of money and a decent amount like lifestyle for yourself, right? So with that transition, I'm pretty sure that would also have been like at the back of your mind that, if I'm actually transitioning completely over here, how is it that I'm going to probably manage my lifestyle, the one that I've created for myself? So which one was that project that gave you that confidence that, okay, yes, this is how I can actually go completely like full time into this?
Right. So that decision was like weirdly not hard to make because
Okay.
my situation was slightly unique. Because usually, I know what you're saying. Usually, like, you have a full-time job, which
Yeah.
pay you well, and then you're artistic, like pursuing, which doesn't pay well, but satisfying creatively.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. So my company stuff, which is TV product, broadcast, we did like money job like Coca-Cola, but we also did like Wu-Tang Clan, and we did a music video for Wu-Tangs and that sort of things, right? But at the time, that's when budget in stuff like music video start basically shrinking. Like back then, music video had so much budget, but
Yeah.
then like we're at the end of it. Like, so like, music business, I mean, music business have no money now, but it's like, I mean, back then they still had it, when in retrospect. But everybody's talking about like how budget is getting smaller and smaller. And then also we're a company and a young company, but like, we're doing money jobs, but like we're a bunch of partners that we have money to run and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like what you get paid by, personally, it's not whatever, whatever left after, like sustaining the company and the machines and, like production costs and stuff. And then, so what happened was my solo stuff, I started getting paid better than company stuff. So like my art stuff, I was doing financially even better than my day job.
That's
So at the time, apart from my sort of like a weird, like sort of like a, I had this, sense of some sort of sense of like a royalty to the company, but like it's not even, well, what happened was at the end, they didn't want my stuff. And then, I mean, I'm not going to get into it because it kind of get weird how, because it's like, so because I wanted to release my work through as collectively as a company, but essentially they're like, no, thank you, because we don't get it. So I
true.
was like, all right. And then, so, I'm not going to get into the kind of complex, like how we actually went down, but it's like, so decision itself is not, was like, it's not like a sort of, was fairly easy.
Sure.
It's just I think not the financial part is sort of as a jumping point. It's like, okay, it's scary to jump into this. It's
Yeah.
more in terms of like, you know what it is? Oh, I mean, more in terms of like, I think sense of responsibility, or like the fact that like you are carrying you're going solo, right? You're in a band
Yeah.
before, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that's one thing. And that could be a successful band, that's cool. But
Yeah.
like when you go solo, you're carrying the entire name.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you're going with your name. That's something. Emotionally, that kind of is a weight on you.
Yeah.
But but also I think this was huge. I remember this because when I signed my back then like the agent to go with solo stuff, essentially, one thing that I was kind of like emotionally sort of trying to, not struggling, but resolve in my head was that when I think for me, I come to realize maybe for a lot of creative people has had the same sort of same thing as a drive or engine. But like, like when I was younger, I think a lot of my motivation come from the anger or some sort of like, I show you someday, like
Yeah.
even when I was in Japan, right? Like I was like, you know, fairly blue collar place. And then, or like I went to school, but then I knew I was, academically, I did well. I mean, frankly, I was smart in Japan when I was a kid, but it's like, it's like, I don't know. It's sort of like a weird, like, I get you, what I mean? I'm gonna show you someday. And then come to US, and then when you're like a foreigner coming to US, right?
Yeah.
You start from scratch, right? Like, I mean, you're the smart guy in Japan. You come here, and then I mean, like you hear about like, people coming from even Germany who used to be Eastern Germany, who was like a professor and they moved to Western Germany, or you know, like somebody from like Asia or like China or Japan or India, you know, come to US, and then
Yeah.
you start from scratch, and you know, like you're like driving or working in Delhi, or and then people treat you like your baby, you know, like what's like, dude, this is my second language. You know what I mean? It's like people,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So like I got into this I show you someday period, you
Yeah.
know, when I was teenager,
Yeah.
as I was treated like a baby, even though I was chances are smarter than the guy who was making fun of my English or whatever. You know what I mean?
So,
They were making fun of me. I was fairly well accepted, but still, you know what I mean? Like you
so,
feel kind of like, Then I got into this broadcast business, and broadcast business is a whole other, you know, art director is telling you this is to this and this is to that. And then I was like, I show you someday, right?
yeah.
But that is a good motivator to do your work, you
Yeah.
know, like the anger and I show you someday. But also I realized that also can become your excuse, because that's a comfortable place to be angry, and then to be sort of doing something for the sake of fighting against something,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But then here comes a moment, everybody tells you, all right, then do your thing and show it.
Yeah.
And that is really scary, you know, to say, oh, because you have no more excuse, you
Yeah.
know, like if your idea doesn't fly because none of that reason have given a chance. If the idea doesn't fly, maybe because the idea isn't that great, you know what I mean, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was scary. So like apart from that, it was an easy decision. But that was sort of like, now I know my motivation have to come from the more mature place than
Sure.
not just the anger,
Sure.
you know, or like, yeah, or get back at someone, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now let's move towards a more interesting space, which
Mm.
is, when you got this opportunity to work with Nike and Reebok and actually come up with a design for a specific sneaker. So you essentially have your own sneaker with Reebok. That's a thing that a lot of people dream of. The best of the people, they dream of having their own sneaker, and you got that opportunity. So how did all of those things actually came by your side?
That, I mean, I done like a 3 sneakers
Yeah.
so far with the Reebok. It all came from like a different. I mean, first time 2005 was like, that was really weird actually. Like I don't even know, some guy, this guy, British guy. Now, again, now I don't remember who his name, Russell. Yeah, this guy Russell. He was like a creative director, and then he was like was gonna do this pop-up store or something, and then he wanted to work with Reebok, and then he wanted to work with me, and then he had a access with Reebok or something. So he kind of became a kind of function of the producer to, brought us together to do this collaboration.
Sure.
And then in the beginning, we were gonna make just 24 pairs
Okay.
just for as an art piece, because that's the minimum you can produce in a factory.
Yeah.
So we made samples, and then thinking it's gonna just be 24 pairs. And then Reebok guys apparently brought this crazy looking shoes at the time. I mean, it still is crazy looking, but at
Yeah.
the time, people really didn't get it in a
Yeah.
way. I mean, I didn't almost get it. So they're kind of under the table showing it, because it's an unofficial product yet. So they're like showing, it's like, oh yeah, we're making, we made this crazy things. And
Yeah.
people like, what is that? So they decided, okay, let's just make it 500 or something.
Yeah.
Decided to make actually like mass produced, you know, put it in the market as opposed to art project,
Sure.
which kind of throw me into, because I had this period, like I come from I studied in product design,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, in school. So I have this product designer mind versus artist mind, I guess. And then
Sure.
I thought if you are gonna, if you told me this is gonna be like 500 pair,
Yeah.
I would design differently. You know what I mean? Like I
True.
designed this as an art piece just for
Yeah.
24 pairs, so I went nuts. You know what I mean?
True.
Which in retrospect, I think became some sort of, because nobody done it, and then started, because reason why nobody done it is like, well, it is frankly too insane, but also um it all, I think maybe it triggered a certain, it could happen because it started as an art project.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody would be, you know, Reebok wouldn't, I don't think, like, big corporation wouldn't allow it to happen.
True.
As so we made this thinking that it's going to be art project, and then they had a pretty good feedback from market or like potential buyers and stuff. So like they're like, all right, let's do this then.
Yeah.
So it was kind of lucky that way, but like not luck, but it's sort of like it happened, so many things align for it to happen that way. And then eventually look like that became fairly accepted, or a lot of people done it. So now it's like, crazy looking sneaker like that is like you get to do it. I did it in 2020 again, two types with a small capsule collections. But like at the time, by the time I did that in 2020, people didn't say it's too crazy. You know what I mean? I mean, even like Reebok guys, when they like, when they posted it, it's like, well, we have this crazy thing coming out. So, it's still considered crazy, but it's not too crazy anymore, which
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
you know,
It's probably because of just the fact that a lot more crazy stuff is actually happening in the whole world of sneakers.
yeah, oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what's happening anymore, but
So you raised a very very good point, which is, in case you knew that they would essentially produce over 500 pieces, you would design it in a way wherein, maybe a product designer would have designed that versus an artist, right? So if you can quickly just give us like some key differentiators as to how maybe an artist thinks and how a product designer thinks, because essentially, like, even to be a product designer, you need to have, some form of creativity in your head, but of course with those technicalities also in your mind. And with art, of course, you can ball out with anything and everything. So if you can just give us maybe a couple of these key differences as to, one, of course, you can also share some examples that maybe what is it that you would have done differently back in the day, right? But it's just some key differences in case you can mention.
right. I mean, by all means, I'm practicing. I I don't practice the product design. You know what I mean? So like um, so but at the time, like my mind was, because my art, I mean, I hesitate to call it artistic side and design side essentially, but like at least back then, I think I felt like definition was, the world was more divided culturally. I feel like right now it's complete jumble of, I wouldn't call it mess, but aesthetically it's sort of like anything goes.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like a content creation to short films to 15-second stuff to TikTok or to feature film to, like a product is like it's kind of more like shades is in a more like, either it's became more sort of subgenre, became more precise, and it became this looks like shades, but it's really more like, maybe it is more defined. But back then it was more like, either like commercial or non-commercial.
Yeah.
Like, I think this also come from the fact that the sort of like, I mean, I think people are finally talking about this recently because of like, like let's say looking back 20 years ago, like Generation X and Gen X stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then uh, this might sound like a weird sort of tangent, but like I think I think I can come back to the point of this. What we're talking about here is that, like Gen X or like I'm slightly too young for Gen X, but like I'm kind of considered part of it, but like it was a bit behind it age-wise. So like at least around that time when I was started it, sort of like we come from the we were so obsessed with like for some reason the idea of selling out,
Yeah.
and everybody was deathly afraid of it, especially Gen Xer. And when you watch like a movie like a Reality Bites now, right? It's like the character is like main character is Ethan Hawke. He's like a poetry reading, like a rock guy, but doesn't have a job, and because getting job is like selling out, which is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
then the director, what's his name? The other guy, what's his name again? The comedian who made the Reality Bites. Um, he plays this executive producer from MTV,
Okay.
but he's trying to sell Winona Ryder's like artistic film for MTV like TV show or MoMA. But when you watch it, there's nothing wrong with that guy. You know what I mean? It's like he's actually a nice dude trying to help her out to advance her career. But of course, she choose Ethan Hawke character at the end. Spoiler, but but now when you look at it, everybody say, did she choose the wrong guy? You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just that like, so what, since we come from this like my generation or slightly people I followed or looked up to come
Yeah.
from this, like even like the graffiti writers and all these people now they're in the commercial realm, and like I have a friend who's Jose, it's like who's in a museum, but it's like that was now it's not considered selling out or anything. I mean, by all means, there's nothing wrong with it. But 20 years ago, everybody was like so anti of anything remotely commercialism. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
um so that became a huge divide between anything considered art and anything remotely commercial art. And then even within that sort of design realm, industrial design and product design was like extreme of it. It's sort of like extreme north of like commercialism or something. That's at least how I felt, but also I kind of feel like how my school taught me, you know, like
Sure.
because again I was telling you that the Parsons was very like more like a training facility than academia, and they tell you like we're here to teach you how to become professional. It's almost like I'm pretty sure they told me, as some professor has told me, you're not artist. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
you're a product designer, you're not
Yeah.
artist. Don't think you're artist. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had a lot of fights with my professors with this,
Okay.
which in retrospect, I don't think I was right per se or anything. I mean, I don't think they're wrong either, actually. It's
Sure.
like, and then also, if anything, I think I was at least more commercially minded or
Sure.
oriented
Sure.
artist anyway, which I
Sure.
actually find joy in it.
Sure.
So, and then I don't think any art is as pure per se
Sure.
in any era from
Sure.
past or even now. So, but at least back then, that's what the notion was.
So do you think, just, a random thought. Do you think that you became so successful in all these different things, even when you transitioned into being like an independent artist from back in the day when you were probably working like a band with your whole, all your co-founders and everything, is because you were your head worked in a way that your projects became commercially viable for you and for the people who basically partnered up with you, be it Nike or Reebok or whosoever. Because a lot of times when artists think about their art or the projects that they want to get into, they want a lot of creative freedom, for sure, right? Just
Mm.
again for their sanity and everything, and they feel like doing something that's great in their head. but obviously those projects need to be commercial viable as well, which in turn leads to, a lot of them not really getting these type of projects and jobs here and there. So do you think that's also one of the big reasons for you, as to how you became so successful? That's one. And two, is that also something that, a lot of artists should take care of whenever they are approaching a project?
You mean like in terms of like, because I'm a little more artistically sort of flexible in the definition of like what the
Yeah,
commercialism is,
so
or is that
so
what you
the
mean?
the catch is, I
Mm,
see a lot of artists
mm,
who are great, who do a lot of great stuff, when they are doing all these different independent projects. But as soon as they connect with, say, brands like, hypothetically speaking, Nike or
mm,
a Reebok or an Adidas, they would reach out to the artist to come up with like a collaborative thing together, right?
mm, mm,
But in a lot of cases, those projects don't turn out or don't even get released. Why? Because once things actually come out, and maybe they come up with samples, this, that, and whatnot, it just doesn't feel commercially viable, because obviously for the brand, they want to make money
mm,
out of that whole project, right? And
mm,
it would only make sense for the brand to actually release a collaboration if they're making money, right? One way or the other. It could be a marketing gimmick, it could be direct
mm,
sales, it could be anything, right?
mm.
But at times artists actually forget that whole aspect, that the brands are collaborating with you to actually make money in turn, right?
Right.
So do you think that's also another reason? Because as you said, you have always been inclined towards the commercial aspects of it, which kind of makes a lot of sense, and hence, you became so successful in working with all these different brands. But do you think that's really, really important for all these artists to consider whenever they're thinking, or
Right. That's,
approaching a
I
project?
mean, that is a, right. That is, I feel like always a question, but it's like, let me think about this a little bit, because it's like, because for my case, and then also when I say, when we discuss this, and I'm sure you understand this, but it's like in general, when we talk about that, like let's say like flexibility in sort of like what's art and what's commercial and that sort of thing
Yeah, yeah,
idea, I don't consider going commercial or like thinking things in like commercial realm is less real, or you know what I mean, like selling out at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's I mean, we always talk about this, or I always say this, but it's like, it's, I mean, it was forever. I don't even know when the art was like a sort of artist was functioning as by keeping it real in terms. I mean, even like a painter back then, they're hired by some rich family to paint their family portrait a little better looking than they are. You know what I mean? But it's like now it's a corporation. You know what I mean? It's nothing. It's things the same, but also because I mean, I don't even know what I think these days though. I mean, it's different, I think, when I at least started it, or even before social media, or even in 2024, I think it's different. It's like aesthetically or visually, things are so you can go any extreme, and then any extreme version of things exist online. Somebody's making it, somebody's releasing it and posting it on their Instagram. But also, I think corporation, and then also the creative director, creatives working in there. And I worked with a bunch of them, and or know them as a friend. They are very smart and talented people, and have a general grasp of like what's happening. And even though now it's so fast how things
yeah,
changes, happening enough that like they know they can work with somebody who is really artist or artistic, right? Like, I just, I don't know. I mean, maybe current era version of like um Francis Bacon or something. And I mean, like, oh, I'm
yeah,
just gonna, just insane, in his insane studio and paint
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
If Nike existed then, they would know how to properly sell
yeah,
corporation sneaker with him.
yeah,
Like by letting him just do his things. Because I think the roles of each artist and producer and all those people are
yeah,
so, it's been around long enough that each roles are so well defined, but also everybody's well trained, that like I think as a machinery, it functions well. Like So like producers and I think corporations are confident enough that the producer or creative director or agency, they can, it's not that they don't even have to control the artist. Just artist makes the art, they can properly execute it and then produce the shoes or any product or any commercially viable product out of it. So I don't think it's necessary, but also at the same time, I think, at least I was, but I think more and more younger generation of artists or creatives, especially now, because of social media and self-aware of how they've been perceived, because it's everything is presentation now, right? Even
Yeah.
you don't even have to be a brand, or you don't have to be an artist, or you don't have to be a famous name or anything. You're
Sure.
like some high school student. It's still you are on social media, and you are what the construct you create
Yeah.
online. So everything is a presentation. You know what I mean? I mean, this is like, it's scary, but training ground for everyone to be self-producing, right? So
Yeah.
like I always had this sort of like bird's eye view, or sort of like, or I guess God's eye view, like you look at it and like where what you want to do and what you're good at, and then where you fitting in terms of the culture, where what's happening right now, and then
Sure.
where am I within it? And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where you are, or like how do I make sense in this?
Yeah.
And then I think more and more young kids are really good at this, to the point that it's almost, what's really scary, I don't, I shouldn't say that it's sad for them, but it's like, because I was growing up before social media or even internet, right? So I spare from all this stuff. So like I could sort of come to my own identity and define my own identity without this chaos of everybody watching you,
Yeah.
or you letting them watch you, or with constructing your identity based on what you think people are seeing in you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But now, I mean, my friends' kids are like, I mean, they're starting with iPhone in their hand. You know, they're already starting before they have any sense of who they are. They
Yeah.
have to construct that
Yeah.
with that perspective at the sort of like a multiple vantage point at once, right?
Yeah.
Really interesting, but I don't even know what's going to happen in 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it comes to training ground of like soldier for like market for, like the consumerism, or like creating some sort of like, hit collaboration product, I think there's so many kids who's good at this, that
Yeah.
they know how they're perceived, and then they I mean, it's tricky, right? Because I don't even know, how would you know what you really want to do
Yeah.
when you are constantly aware of what your art looks in the context of culture. But I think that's how it was, right? Even
Yeah.
I mean, somebody like a Picasso, he was an amazing producer at the same time, right? He knew exactly what would sell. And then, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe I don't know how Van Gogh really was, but like,
Yeah.
if he was actually just sort of, I don't know, what he painted, just like cry from his soul, and then end up selling later after he died or whatever.
After he
That's
died.
one thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't know if they're like in two extremes, but like,
Yeah.
somebody like Picasso, or, whoever, or Dali, like they know what they're capable of. Obviously, they're supremely talented, but they
Yeah.
also know are really good producers of
Sure.
themselves as artists. So they have a split size to it. And then I think, fairly, I don't know if I was good at that, or I think, but tricky is sometimes, even as a producer side of you, of self,
Yeah.
you let that sort of artistic side of you go slightly out of bounds and slightly scarier than what producer side would consider in the realm of um, commercial market, because otherwise you will land on somewhere not mediocre, but just sort of, safe. And then
Sure.
then hence it doesn't really stand out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know.
So I actually wanted to follow this up with this question about, how should essentially all these different artists eventually negotiate whenever they are coming up with these projects with all these different brands, because of course, these partnerships involve a lot of money also here and there. But I think
Mm,
that would be more interesting if we did it maybe on a live session across on Instagram, maybe just so that people can also interact and maybe ask a couple of follow-up questions over there. So in case you're comfortable with that, we'll take it forward over there. But right now, I really want to in quick in shortened up versions of it, I want to understand like what's your process like, because your design language has a lot of intricate details, right?
mm,
And it has a lot of symmetry also, which I'm pretty sure also comes in from this subconscious mind, wherein you told us that during your childhood you
mm,
actually spent a lot of time in all these different factories and industries and all of that. So maybe those lines and those symmetries came in from there, but it has a lot of intricate design, which at a lot of time feels like it has a world of its own. Your
mm,
designs have a world of its own. So
mm.
what is it like what's your thought when you're coming up with all these different things when you're designing
What?
anything?
Right, right. I mean, like when you're starting like a project and stuff, whatever,
Yes.
and how I, yeah. I mean, generally, like, I mean, this actually, like, we're gonna. I mean, think this gonna we're gonna talk about this later, but like, this is something it's changing for me right now rapidly,
Okay.
because this method or this idea, generally, I'm gonna tell you, I feel like it run its my course for me at least, because I've done it and I feel like, what more can I do with this? It's really so. What happened generally, how I thought I was doing, which I was doing it this way, I think, is like each project generally, like I kind of picture, um let's say, like, you're creating your own planet, right? For each project, the planet, right? And then like a video game or something, if you're creating like a Sim City or something, I never played it, but I mean, how I imagine it was like,
Yeah.
you create the like planet with particular parameters of like what the gravity is like, air is like,
Yeah.
weather, wind
Yeah.
span, wind and whatnot, right? And then you set that rule or like of physics, and then you throw stuff in there and see what happens. So like whatever it happens, it follow the particular rules.
Sure.
So it will become some sort of like creative or aesthetical backbone. So it
Yeah.
won't go, at least it stays coherent. What's
Sure.
my idea generally. So that's how I worked. I mean, this might sound kind of like abstract, but like that's how I always saw things in
Sure.
each project. Because especially, I think some of my stuff was pretty chaotic and chaotic looking, but at least I could explain everything because there was some sort of rule I established in the beginning of the,
Yeah.
right?
See,
And
honestly,
then,
I did not know that this was actually your thought. But
mm,
whenever I see your work, it's like it's really has a world of its own. So I
right.
never thought that this would actually come down to you actually building it up like that. I thought there
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have
yeah.
been something other than this, but it just kind of comes all in together, and it's like it's really a world of its own, and you design
Yeah,
it like
yeah, yeah.
that.
Yeah, literally like I was creating
Yeah.
that. So it's
Yeah.
like the world, like from scratch, kind of.
Yeah.
But like what happened eventually was like slowly moved into later, or like a past, let's say 10 years or something, is a phase is that a lot of time in the beginning, because let's say you're working with these rules you set
Yeah.
up. And sometimes there is like some sort of like a mistake you make, or you something drop some stuff in there and then see it land in a weird way that like, but somewhat looks good,
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I did here, but looks good or feels good. But when I was younger, because if it didn't follow the rule I established in the beginning, I would ignore that feeling.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I would ignore that hunch, because I think when I was younger, I still wasn't confident enough with my instinct. Because essentially what happened, I think, in this kind of like in aesthetic or creative or design sort of like the realm, I think experience like hunch or instinct come from the experience, like that you
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
through your career or whatever. So I didn't have enough of that to really trust myself. So eventually, when I see something, some sort of like a chance happening
Yeah.
in that process of working, I start following that hunch. And it's like, I'm not sure, I'm totally going against my own rule here, but I feel right. So let's lean into this, which, or either mistake or something, you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
I actually think this is one of the way to encounter potential future AI, rise of
Yeah.
AI,
Yeah.
because AI still can really make a mistake, right? And
Yeah.
then nothing random. Everything seems random, but it's all so far, it's culmination of their research on like what we've done online that exists, right? Like, so they kind of like go out there and research everything and they understand what it, or not, I don't even know if it's understanding. It's just mathematical come up with whatever is considered force, or
Yeah.
like galactic or
Yeah.
whatever, or calm, and then they do that. But so far nothing is out of nowhere. Everything comes from something.
Yeah.
So like the fact that like if we still are the last thing that maybe we to encounter AI is a mistakes we make, or and then you lean into that, like you kind of like sharpen that idea that it's like something weird came out of it. So
Actually,
that's where I am.
on that
Mhm.
part, I wanted to ask you this. So you
Mm.
recently came up with this project called the Remix, wherein you revisited all your, older
This is
projects.
years ago though, like the remake thing. Yeah.
Yeah, years ago, but still, it was still, you know, kind of new versus the projects when you initially did it, right?
Mm.
So you revisited all your older projects. Was it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you thought that there were some mistakes in those, those initial things, or what
Mm.
was the thought like that you wanted to redo all the things that you did earlier?
Yeah, so that was like around the time, like 10th years of like so this is like in 2009 or something, like end of basically like a 2000s. And then how I think I was seeing it, especially like at least the big selling idea at the time was like, when I was doing that, was like I felt like since 2001, essentially 20th first century,
Yeah.
aesthetically felt like era of remakes of 20th century, really. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like I felt like, especially, I mean, speaking of 9/11, in New York City at least, it felt like we didn't properly started like 21st century yet. Like everything sounded still was, we're still doing the rehash of like, nothing new came out. Like if anything, what our vision of the future in 20th century or 70s, or even 80s or 50s looked more future than like what we are now. It's like, we just now like became like looking back on 20th century for
Yeah.
first 10 decades, which makes sense, I guess. It's like every time you start a new century or something, like you don't really start looking back on it like past 10 years of the last century. You kind of like, all right, 20th century ended. What was that? So you're trying to process it. And especially 20th century was such a thing to process culturally. I mean, because of the
Yeah.
postmodernism and stuff, and then we are like forever, basically like the whole world has been stuck in that. But also 20th century was basically like, century of violence and war. So in New York City, we started with, essentially 9/11.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you're not gonna get into the detail, but it's like I really come to realize that now New York never got over 9/11. Like one of the reasons why New York is being here is becomes progressively strange to me. It's like when that just happened, you think you wait until world's gonna go back to where we are. But in a sense, I felt in America or New York in 90s, I realized never to come back. Anyway, so so that's sort of like, yeah, yeah, so like that was the main sort of reasoning for that concept. But also when it comes to remake, no, yeah, first time it's what I think what like generally like the idea of a remake is interesting in terms of like also like everybody was remaking anything in the movie or whatever anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly against remake, but it's like, for example, like a remake, I mean, it's like you should remake that idea, or let's say if it's a movie, you should remake the movie which had initially a good idea, but
Yeah.
execution was bad. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You shouldn't make like, I don't know, Encounter, um, you shouldn't make like ET or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I mean, they got it right for the first time.
Yeah.
Make the one that it was a bad movie, but it had a really good potential as an idea, and then they didn't get it for the first time.
True.
So, do it for the
But on the
uh
contrary, it happens the other way around. So they remake the best of the best, and then
of
they,
course.
sorry for a foul language, but they shit on the remake. It's
Hmm?
at times it's like that. The remakes are worse than anything that you would actually expect to come out of that whole project.
That like
Because
you mean
comparison,
generally.
yeah, the comparison points usually are with those initial iterations, and the remakes never really you know um get to that level realistically.
Right. But my counter for that is like, like that generally what they say is like there's only 7 stories, right? Like
Yeah.
there's only variation of 7 stories.
Yeah.
Like the Greek came up with everything already. And
Yeah.
then we just repeating the same ideas,
Okay.
same stories over and over. Or like, they're like a movie directors, like, like who makes essentially the same movie over and over until they get it right. But also particular idea, especially now, particular idea, every era context changes. So I think some of that idea is worth revisiting because, like, I don't know, like I mean, I know they're remaking third time of what's the movie? Um what's the movie with the Al Pacino? Like, Say Hello to My Little Friend. What was that movie?
A lot of movies of Al Pacino.
Um I forgot what the title was. But Scarface.
Scarface, yeah,
They're
Scarface.
making Scarface, I think, with the sort of a Mexican angle or something like that. But that was Cuban back then in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then before that, I forgot what it was, but like in the 50s or something, there was something else.
But I
Or like the
genuinely don't
thing.
believe that they'll be able to actually, honestly, like this is my feeling. They would
Mhm.
actually be able to surpass the iconic Scarface, like what we initially saw. It's an iconic
Which one are you talking about though?
Al Pacino's.
No, that's remake.
Al
Al
Pacino's.
Pacino remake is remake. There was one original,
Oh,
it's 50s. That's what I'm
okay,
saying. There's
okay.
always
That's
that is a proof, for example, that movie. Or the
that's a new thing
thing.
that I've learned.
Yeah, the thing, the John Carpenter thing, right? That was also remake. I mean, it's not exactly. I mean, it's a remake, but it's like a revisit of the same novel. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, like, or because of like also that the certain method of storytelling change, right? Like, for example, I grew up in the 80s, so obviously, or 90s, or 80s and 90s. Obviously, as a child, never ending story is I loved it, right? And
Yeah.
then people like, you can remake that. No, I also but read the book and I was a big fan of the book, so
Okay.
I know that movie is just the 1/3 of the entire book.
Okay.
But back then movie was never made into like a 3-hour movie, or they didn't make like 3 movies at the same at once, like Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
With that being said, actually, do you really believe that they can pull off something like, maybe a Harry Potter today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, because movie now becomes like let's say like now they have budget for Netflix series or something, right? So
Yeah.
they can basically make 8-hour version of stuff and people binge watch it.
Sure.
I mean, there's no way if you read the Neverending Story, that book has so much in it. that there was no way to make 2 hour movie, but they made it, and they did a
Yeah.
good job. But that they still, I'm as much as as a child of 80s, I'm a big fan of Neverending Story of that version we had. That has such a potential to revisit as series, to
Sure.
do like 10 episode series to
Sure.
really dive into it, because that literally that book is like it never ends. So so it's like different era, different method of storytelling. It
You know what? We've just actually seeded a thought to some potential guy who was looking for a great project to release with Netflix. So, in case anyone does it, guys, you heard it here first. Make
Mhm.
sure there are some royalties that come our way, or at least Kenzo's way, because that's an idea that no one else has pulled off, at least as of now.
Right.
So that's that. But yeah, moving forward, actually, getting back to your world.
Hmm.
Uh, so, like, just a quick question for the aspirants who want to get into the world of design. What are some specific tools and learnings that people should actually train themselves in, like in the in the years that are following, of course, with this whole Gen AI also coming our way. So, are there any specific tools that you would recommend that every single artist should learn today?
Like actual tool.
Yeah, tools. Yeah. So,
I,
say
hmm.
Adobe or things like that, any specifications that you reckon, someone should for sure be trained well enough in that space if they want to get into this world of product and
Right.
design and art. Yeah.
I don't know, because it's like, I mean, one is of course it's changing, but also I'm in a sort of transitional state right now,
Okay.
definitely. So I'm r- learning a bunch of new stuff. Even though some of the elements is like what I've done before, like because I used to do 3D in early sort of Silicon graphics and the LES stuff when I was doing the student and when I was doing in the broadcast stuff. And I stopped doing that for a while. Now I'm start playing around the Blender, for example. So
Okay.
that's to see what I can do with it. And then at the same time, I'm start shooting like a photo again and the video again to again, that's what I was telling you about. Like let's say like stuff like graphic design, the term is so wonderfully loose enough that you learn new skill or anything and you can incorporate into anything. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? That's the beauty of it. So now I'm kind of doing that. So it's like I'm learning, I don't know, like stuff like Lightroom, just to edit my photo or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Because when it comes to like Illustrator and Photoshop, like of course I'm good at them, but people seems to be good at them these days. You know what I mean? Like everybody
Yeah.
seems to know how to use it, which is insane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Back
Yeah.
then it was like people with special job had used
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Now like anybody uses it.
Yeah.
So
I actually
I
used to
don't
get
know.
scared with their interface, honestly. So whenever I used to open up Photoshop, I used to be like, "What the hell is this, dude?" Even if it was like
Mm.
back in the day, of course, it was really intricate and everything, right?
Right.
And it just used to scare me. I used to be like, "I'll get the job done. I'll probably pay someone XYZ money and get the
Right.
job done rather than actually to deal with this whole interface for an hour or so." Even
Right.
if I can save up that money, it used to be really, really intricate like that. But now it's like, you know, kids in fourth grade, fifth grade, just using it like a pro.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's actually very
So,
crazy.
I mean, I don't know what's the particular skill. I mean, like, I don't want to be like all profound, like, well, everybody should, be able to draw properly or whatever. I mean, it would be nice, but it's like anything is, I mean, I actually think, I mean, I'm at the stage, but also, like, I think if you're talking about specifically on like our type of jobs or something,
Yeah.
industry or whatever, it's like being actor or writer, right? Like there's no waste, like if you learn new skill sets, you can always incorporate it in some way. So like if you're a writer or actor, I mean, the excuse is like they can do whatever they want with their
Yeah.
lives, and then like any mistake or some crazy stuff they do, they can say like, well, I learned something, or I can write about this, or I can
Yeah.
incorporate that for my emotional resonance or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I feel the same way
That's
about that,
that's actually really interesting because most of the times whenever we talk about the technical world, at least, They tell you that you got to learn these XYZ things. Whereas when you're in a creative space, you can figure these things out. And obviously there are new tools coming in left, right, and center every now and then. So you got to stay updated like that also. Following up to that question, I want to ask you this thing. What do you reckon in today's world? What is it that people should actually opt for? Is it like, while I think I know your answer where it's going to head out, but is it that people should focus on one specific skill
Mm.
or one specific type of art or something like that, or they can go multidisciplinary and still pull it off, probably how you did it back in the day, from back in the day, and still doing it,
Right.
and other people also who used to do it? Because obviously, I feel a lot of times people are looking for specialists rather than who are essentially generalists. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, I agree with it. I mean, it's like, I mean, of course, if you can do everything like that'd be great. But it's like, I think, yeah, like that being really good at one things or very focused, specialist is, I think it's good. Wait, at least starts. I mean, it's
Sure.
like, because as I was saying, like I think world and the media became the way that it's like I mean, if you're really good at one thing, somebody's gonna find you.
Yeah.
Oh, you can be found. Like back then, if you're like really specialized in one particular obscure stuff, it's like, how are you gonna get anything with this? Now it's like online. It's like somebody's looking for you. Somebody's
Yeah.
looking for the skill you have, and it can be weirdest things, specific things. So might as well really good. I mean, sometimes I feel that way as well. It's like I'm good with fairly multiple things, but then if I end up like if I'm in a solemn place that like if but I'm really good at particular few things among the things that I know how to do, and then might as well go find the opportunity that I can use that as my arsenal and weapon of choice. Then like something I'm kind of good at. It's like
Yeah.
it's because I think in the past I actually felt that way sometimes that like because what I do, it's hard to, especially in the beginning of the career, it was very hard for me to sort of explain what I do or what I want to
Yeah.
do or what I'm about. There was so many attempts by my agent or people or creative director to pigeonhole me into this is what he is, but I'm like, am I though? So it's like at some point I was like basically I was like illustrator, and I was like, I'm not really, but then I'm basically trying to be good at things that like I'm not passionate about and I'm not that, I don't think, good at, while I have that certain skill that I know nobody else can do.
Sure.
So might as well focus on that because that's happy for me and
Yeah.
that's good for my clients. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like as opposed to, if I'm like, because they can always find, not even just can find somebody else to do it, but it's like maybe I'm gonna be good at
Yeah.
particular level, but like because there's so many people with amazing skill sets, and then sometimes it's like a lot of them are like kind of um gone unappreciated or unused, and then it's such a waste for the culture, for everyone,
It's
so it's
more
sort
like
of
you start with becoming great at one thing and then expand your horizon, so that people at
yeah,
least know you for that one thing, at least, if not anything else.
right, right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, these days,
Yeah.
I think industry like this, if you're really good at something, that becomes a key to step into put your like foot in the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Once you get in there, you can move around. Like so use just like whatever that your key is. That should be your strongest skill set
Yeah.
to get in,
Yeah.
and then move around after that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. uh, with that, while we are getting towards the end of our conversation, one thing
Mm.
that I genuinely want to know is the fact that you've worked with multiple mediums. So you've worked on textile, you've worked on murals, you've worked on just fine arts, and with paper and everything. What's one medium that you personally love for whatever reasons,
That right, I mean, among what I've done, or
among what you've done or amongst what you've always wanted to do, and you've probably
yeah,
done that personally but not really commercially.
right. So I think what's happening, especially right at this moment, it's very, that's very like evident, is like um I start taking a lot of photos recently.
Okay.
Just for, and I always meant to. And then, I always take photo in multiple. I mean, in the 90s, I had a film camera or whatever, just random
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
Or now everybody takes on the iPhone and stuff. But then before that, I used to actually be in, TV production and stuff. So doing that, but it's like I've never properly like, did anything. And so I now start taking a lot of photos. And then also, weirdly, there are a lot of people around me that constantly been telling me for a long time, like past decades, like you should really, you have good eyes, you should start, taking photos, or like there's one guy who's actually now I'm having meetings with. He was one of the guys that sort of I know him for a while. He kept telling me he used to be the band, now he has something else. He does something else now, but like he used to have a band and stuff, and he was like, I just wanna like hire you to like make like music videos. So like you do it. So it's like basically there's one guy who keep pushing me to do it, on trying to like encouraging me to do it, but like almost forcing me to do it. So there are a lot of people telling me, so like start like got a camera and start shooting photos, and then like when I take it, a lot of like like I would go, um because I'm at the also age that like from here, photography is like, if anything, it's a good memory.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like dark, but like I'm at the age that the sort of like from here, it's all long goodbye. You know what I mean? So it's like I want to document. Also, like I have been in a very fortunate place in New York City or in the world in general, that I've been in a very interesting places, in interesting situation with really interesting people, and I
Sure.
never really documented them. So I was like, you know what? I should document all these people. And I'm still invited to, kindly invited to interesting events and stuff. So
Yeah.
I started taking photos, or I love going to like a book reading and stuff. So I would take a photo or something. And then they would ask me, oh, can we use this as official photos for these
Yeah.
things or this presentation? So I'm like, sure, sure, use it, use it. So now I'm slowly getting actually like, stuff photo I took is like used for some,
Sure.
presentation stuff, which is nice.
Sure.
So I'm kind of slowly doing that, but also like, so with this guy who would keep pushing me, we're talking about, um, we're actually going to do, I don't know, like sort of like a short film, sort of short documentary films
Sure.
type of stuff about particular things in New York. So we already having meetings about that. So doing that, because a part of me also was like, um, my I always respected documentary filmmakers. I have a many friends, but like in my head, for some reason, it's a culmination of like all the art form I like,
Sure.
filmmaking and of course storytelling, but then, photographing things, but also like, investigative journalism, and
Yeah.
like it's, it feels like you actually it's something, it's actually meaningful. You know what I mean? So so I'm kind of like, this guy's asking me to do it. So I was like, yeah, that sounds like, I don't know. It feels like so as what we're talking about, like when I was a kid, that my first love was a movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of going back to this, which makes sense. I think
Yeah.
everybody does this. It's being sort of like think behind my back, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows that I
Yeah.
love movies, or like know about it, or have eyes for it. But like, and I gave my sort of like giving my hand in solo things in the past, and like professionally, but or like sometimes I just like give feedback, or even some actually pretty I'm not gonna get into it, but like a pretty big Hollywood movie production that I kind of give like feedback or advice in the back, sort of. So it's kind of like it makes sense that I'm kind of eventually going to this. I kind of knew that this is gonna be my later career phase, because it
Oh,
makes sense. Because I think what happened also is graphic design, as we were talking about, go back to when you're talking about creating the whole world,
yeah,
and then it feels like I'm creating the whole world from scratch kind of thing. I think what happened was in life, when I started it, and then growing up in the factory or whatever, as much as I had a good time, I grew up in a very, as a child view, through child's eyes, it wasn't a beautiful place. So I wanted to create the world or recreate the world from scratch, right? Like it was absolute control over everything. And I've done that for decades. And then got to the point I was like, with graphic design, I feel like I've done a lot of things that I felt like I wanted to do. Or like skills wise, I just gonna either I could keep doing this, or like either how much more complicated can I make, or how can I
yeah,
even more refine this into something else?
yeah,
But I'm at the age that I start seeing, I know this is cliche and it sounds sappy, but you start seeing beauty in the world around you. And I was
yeah,
like, you know what? War is a beautiful place if
yeah,
you look at the right things, whatever. So I start wanting to reframe it or point at it. Like, this is nice,
yeah.
and this is nice, So that's what
Not
to
everything
me
needs
is,
to be perfect.
yeah. So
Yeah,
photography, it's like, then as I was saying, because the progression of my graphic design process, it's like in the beginning was like I did it exactly how I wanted, and eventually I start following mistakes and then a chance and the happenstance, right?
yeah,
Because and then start leaning into it. Photography give you a perfect opportunity for like unexpected circumstances, or like you can have complete control over the framing. It's like
sure.
something happens, you either go with it and then or fight it, and you decide all that in the instant, and then you make something out of somebody else's action or weather or lighting or the world, like literally the planet I
Yeah,
used to create from scratch. It's already here, and it's doing its own thing, and I have to somewhat work with it.
yeah,
It's more exciting to me now, at least at this
sure,
phase.
sure, sure.
It makes sense to me that I went this way.
Interesting, super interesting. So, of course, like now we are super short on time. So I won't, talk a lot about other things. And as I said, we have to talk about the negotiating part, connecting with the
Mm-hmm.
brands, things like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to talk about Nepenthes also. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
that is something that we can take forward, maybe on across on Instagram. So first of all, for anyone who has stayed back till this, like, after about an hour and a half of this conversation, please make sure you check out all our socials and follow us along over there. Like, just a shameless plug, but also because we'll be having a conversation over there. Just on an ending note, I really want to know, while you've given us a glimpse as to what's probably going to come our way from you, which is going to be a lot of photography stuff and things like that. But is there anything else that you would like to mention? Like, one thing that I recently came across was the fact that you next month you will be a part of an exhibition which
Right.
actually showcases work from different crazy artists and pioneers, right? And they're calling it, I think, artware, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it features Virgil Abloh, Daniel, and the best of the best.
Bastian.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cars. It's insane.
it's
It's I
insane.
mean, it's such a good company. I
Yeah,
can't think of better company. It's
and
like
it's the
they have
Bata Shoe
everyone.
Museum.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
It's
Bata Shoe
it's
Museum.
amazing
It's big.
actually. It's like I'm very honored to be a part of that. It's
Yeah,
amazing. I loaned this shoes. It's for like a year and a half. So
yeah.
yeah.
So anything else that that you would like to share that's probably coming our way from you?
Yeah, there is something this is a funny thing is there is something I worked on last year, like for a long time, and then like it's not out yet and I can't talk about, which is like because it's
All right.
like if when and then
Any
if
hints? Any
when
hints?
this
Just a couple of hints if you can.
yeah. Yeah, and then that would be like to me actually still like that would be the biggest thing for me actually. But
Okay.
that and then like what else is there? Like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be. Oh yeah, I was telling you, like, I don't know if this was a part of the recording, but like, I'm supposed to be working on. That's why it's a mess back here. So
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be documenting all the T-shirt that I made in my life.
Okay.
Put it in, make a book out of it essentially. So like we've been talking about this for a while, but it just turned out to be like shooting for photo of the T-shirt. It's not as simple as you think it
Yeah.
is. You know?
Yeah.
You have to. Oh my god. So
But do
like
you
this
really have
publisher.
all the t-shirts that you've designed ever, like in your entire
Pretty
life? You have
much, pretty
everything?
much.
Oh, that's
Yeah, pretty
amazing.
much.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's I have like 300 t-shirt different version, 300 t-shirt. So
They're
it's
like
like,
archive pieces. I'm pretty sure you can probably
yeah.
exhibit them like in place.
Yeah. So like I was basically like the publisher was like, oh, let's do a book together. And I was like, that sounds good. And it's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, if anything, I want to document all the t-shirt I have in my boxes
Yeah.
and put it in one place so I don't have to worry about this anymore, you know? So,
Yeah.
but then I have to shoot them. So I was like, I
Yeah.
mean, that was a part of like, okay, I need a proper camera. But then I was like, then I start shooting everything else. So
Sure.
I'm supposed to be doing that. But you know, so yeah.
That's one thing that I'm already looking forward to it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
whenever it comes
I
out,
had
I'll
to
I'll
make that happen.
probably be like the first guy to get hold of that book
Thank you.
to
Thank
begin
you.
with. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this, Kenzo.
Thank you so much.
Means a lot. Genuinely means a
No, no.
lot.
No. I mean,
It's
for me
like
too. Yeah, thanks so much.
it's just another project that came to my mind, and it was like I really wanted, the Browns to learn from the best of the best,
Thank you
and
so much.
that was the whole idea. And I genuinely don't know anyone who's better than you in the world of design, at least.
Thank you so
So
much.
thank you for
So
doing
kind.
this. Thank you for doing this. And yeah, I don't know. I'm actually in awe right now that I got to have this conversation with you for over an hour and a half. But
Oh
I'm
yeah, wait, it's
yeah,
been that?
I'm I'm
Wow.
ho- I'm hoping to probably meet you soon, sometime,
Yeah.
whenever I
And
get
then
a chance to
anytime, yes.
travel to New York, or in case you get a chance to travel to India. So that would be
Yeah.
amazing. That would be lovely.
Yeah. I have a
But
lot of friends who end up being there, so who knows?
oh, that
Can't
would be
happen.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to host you. Trust me, there's some really, really crazy stuff that's waiting for you to just come down
Right.
over here, and it's going to be a
Yeah.
ball. But yeah, that's that, guys. Thank you so much for joining in, for anyone and everyone who's probably watching it till the end. Thank you for joining in. That was Sir Kenzo Minami. I hope you all learned something from this dialogue. And yeah, that is it. Stay tuned, like, share, subscribe, the usual stuff. And I won't take long, but I'll just end it with the fact that I think I'm pretty lucky to actually maybe call you a friend, just
Yeah.
who came
Of
across
course.
on socials. And someone who's really, really inspiring a lot of people, and who has done some amazing work. Like, I'll be honest, I came across your work because of your Reebok collaboration.
Right.
But then after that, I started googling around and started learning about your journey and everything. And I was like, this is like, if you are a creative person, that's the life that you essentially want. You work with the best of the best. You bring out the best in you, right? And you're living in New York. You're literally living in New York, and you're a part of a world that is kind of, that is like a funnel wherein all the different cultures and everything literally trickles down into that whole spectrum, more or
Right.
less. So
Right.
that's such a great place to be in, to actually be a creative, because you get inspirations every day. You get to
Right.
meet so many interesting people every day, or at least see them just walking around parks and this and that and whatnot. So I think
Yeah.
that's like the ideal space if you're a creative guy. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I think I'm going to shut my mouth now. And yeah,
No. I mean, you're right. Like, if anything, it's like one of the best thing that you get from this is like a people I get to meet.
yeah.
So yeah, very fortunate.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And
Thank you
I'll
so much.
hopefully see you soon. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Cheers. It's night for me, so
Cheers.
I'm hoping that's daytime for you. So have a great day, and yeah, see you soon. Bye.
See you soon. Thank you. So are we good now?
Yeah,
Should we
yeah,
just
yeah,
stop there?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, we sold. Yeah. Yeah, I will just move on now. So
Mhm.
thank you. I'll just shut the recording too.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then keep me posted.
For
Yeah,
sure, for
thank you.
sure, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks. I hope this mess was okay.
Oh, it was amazing. Trust me, it was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was amazing.
it is a mess, but
Don't worry. Okay,
it is
bye.
what it is. Yeah. Bye.